Hello everyone, today is February the 13th, 2025 and this is the Just Dario Daily. The title of today's daily is How Softbank is Fighting Bankruptcy. 3 months ago, right after Softbank quarterly results for the 3 months ended in September 2024, I wrote the article. Softbank is running out of cash, but no worries, Nvidia is trying to rescue it, highlighting how Ponzi's son's company continues to burn significant amounts of cash. However, a timely announcement of a partnership with Nvidia convinced investors to keep ignoring fundamentals and remain committed to Ponzi's vision. Since I wrote the last article, Ponzi literally went on an announcement spree. OpenAI investment, $1.5 billion tender offer to existing employees willing to cash out. Crystal Intelligent Partnership, $3 billion annual commitment to OpenAI Enterprise AI. NVIDIA Collaboration, AI, RAN, and Supercomputing Initiative. Stargate Investment Program, $500 billion total investments commitment, of which $100 billion done immediately. OpenAI investment announcement, $40 billion investment at $260 billion valuation. Anyone familiar with Softbank Group financials knew Ponzi had just a fraction of the money needed to back his promises, but every single announcement was music to investors' ears, who could not buy Softbank stock fast enough. Yesterday, Softbank Group released its latest financial earnings, and here is the headline of the breaking news. Softbank falls to $2.4 billion loss amid plans for huge AI investments. Before diving into the latest numbers, let me ask a few open questions to you, my dear reader. How is it possible that Softbank funds and direct investment keep losing so much money while the world market, especially the tech sector that is theoretically where Softbank focused, keeps churning out new all-time high records every other day? Considering the mark-to-market of Softbank unlisted investments, the vast majority of the portfolio is done by Softbank itself, hence customarily reflecting higher valuation than the real market value. How bad is the situation really if they themselves cannot hide the mess from surfacing anymore? Last question. How can Softbank possibly survive a bear market or perhaps even a less bullish one when it is already in such a situation right now? I believe all of these are fair questions, and it just takes some basic logic to answer them, right? All right, now let's go beyond the basic logic and take a look at the latest numbers. This quarter, Softbank reported 4.66 trillion JPY of cash and equivalents, slightly up from 4.48 trillion from the end of the prior quarter. Good news then? Not really. This result has been achieved by raising 350 billion JPY of additional debt during the quarter, increase in the difference between proceeds from interest-bearing debt minus repayments of interest-bearing debt, that compensated for the cash drain on other fronts. What about investment activity? Softbank only invested 80 billion JPY more in the quarter, equivalent to $500 million. Hold on a second. Does this mean that the $1.5 billion tender offer made to OpenAI employees wasn't successful as Ponzi claimed? Or did he perhaps commit a lower amount while declaring a higher one, as he usually does for the benefit of the media? Surely the numbers are clashing a bit with what has been fed to the news outlets. I know what you're thinking now. How can Softbank pledge hundreds of billions of dollars in investments when it only holds about $30 billion of cash and cash equivalents in its accounts? Let me blow your mind a little bit more, because the reality is actually worse. As you can see from this table, Softbank has 7.3 trillion JPY of interest-bearing debt current, meaning that it will mature in less than 1 year. What about current assets? In appearance, Softbank can cover its short-term interest-bearing debt repayments. However, if we take a closer look, it does not take long to realize that there is a liquidity problem with all other current assets besides cash and cash equivalents. However, we need to take a look at its Softbank Corp subsidiary to better understand what's going on. And here is where things begin to become murky. Softbank Corp is the main business operation of Softbank Group. And as of the December 31st, 2024, it reported 5.43 trillion JPY of current assets, among them 1.9 trillion JPY of cash and equivalents, against 7.2 trillion JPY of current liabilities. Let me blow your mind now. Please take a look at this table. As you can see, 1.9 trillion JPY of current liabilities are deposits from banking business, which means that all of Softbank Corp cash is tied to those that can be withdrawn at any time. This amount is being consolidated in Softbank Group, meaning that Softbank's real amount of cash available is not 4.66 trillion JPY because, for banking regulation, they need to have a significant amount of it tied to the deposits they collect from the public. Considering that besides cash and cash equivalent in assets and interest-bearing debt in the liabilities, all other items match themselves, the shortfall between total current assets, roughly 10.33 trillion JPY, and total current liabilities, roughly 13.5 trillion JPY, of 3 trillion JPY, is related to Softbank's short-term interest-bearing debt. Clearly, Softbank not only does not have cash by far to back its promises of hundreds of billions of dollars of investments, but is also fast approaching a liquidity crisis this year, unless it manages to keep rolling its short-term debt forward. The only mainstream media that had the guts to question all this charade was Forbes, although it was shortly leaked. In his article, Softbank's $100 billion promise to Trump is more than its entire market cap. How is Softbank fighting its liquidity crisis? At this point, it should not come as a surprise that Softbank borrowed more money against its ARM shares. However, banks aren't as naive as Softbank wishes them to be, since it is so obvious how ARM shares' value is being artificially inflated. Hence, it is fair to assume they are lending at a very high loan-to-value. ARM being included in the S&P 500 is definitely Softbank's goal on this front, since without it, there are not enough bag holders to liquidate the shares when Softbank holds 90% of them. And the banks know it. As I wrote in the article, is Softbank trying to squeeze ARM into major indexes to force passive investing bids and liquidate the stock without crashing it? As a result, Softbank only managed to increase its hybrid loan against ARM shares in December by $5 billion, an amount that will be available to repay maturing short-term debt, definitely not to cover hundreds of billions of investments it pledged. Does Softbank only have a liquidity problem, or is it overall solvent? I showed in my previous article how Softbank is already insolvent, and the latest results showcasing a steep loss of value of its investments made the situation worse, not better. Mr. Market is not naive either, since as of now, this is what he thinks about Softbank. Softbank market cap is roughly $91 billion. ARM market cap is roughly $163 billion. Softbank owns 90% of ARM, equivalent to $147 billion, right? This means that net of ARM shares, whose value is massively hyperinflated, which is why banks only gave Softbank a $13.5 billion credit line against them as collateral, Mr. Market values all the remaining Softbank business at a negative $56 billion.